Hey everyone and welcome. If you've got an older, smaller dog, you know there's a sound that can just send a chill right down your spine. That persistent, hacking cough. For years, we've had a name for it, the cardiac cough. But you know what? That name might not be telling us the whole story. Let's dig in.
This is it, right? It's the fear that hits you immediately. You hear that cough, you know your dog has a heart murmur, and your mind just jumps to the worst-case scenario, congestive heart failure. But as we're about to see, the latest science is telling us we need to seriously rethink that automatic connection.
You know, if you ask any veterinarian, they'll tell you that a coughing older dog is one of the most common things they see. And for decades, there's been this really powerful assumption about what that cough means, especially when a heart condition is in the picture. So this has been the traditional thinking for, well, forever. The term cardiac cough itself suggests the heart is the direct cause. The idea was that fluid backing up into the lungs, that's what congestive heart failure, or CHF is, was triggering the cough. And, it sounds logical, but as we're about to find out, the actual science tells a very different story. And there you have it, straight from a major review on this very topic. Researchers are now finding that this belief we've held for so long is being directly contradicted by the evidence. So, to really understand why, we've got to take a step back and look at how a cough even works in the first place.
Okay, so before we can really bust this myth wide open, we need to understand the basic mechanics, the wiring of a cough. Where does it actually come from, and what's its real job?
At its core, a cough is basically a defense mechanism. It's this powerful, explosive reflex designed to keep the big upper airways clear. Think of it like the body's bouncer. Its job is to forcefully throw out anything that shouldn't be there. And pay attention to that last part, upper airways. That is super important.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The alarms that trigger the cough reflex, well, they're not spread out evenly through the whole system. The sensory receptors are actually packed together in the large upper airways. We're talking the larynx, the trachea, the big bronchi. The crucial thing to know is that they are not found deeper in the lungs.
So here's the bottom line, the absolute key to this whole thing. The upper airways, they are loaded with cough receptors. But as you go deeper into the lungs, down into those tiny little air sacs called the alveoli, those receptors just vanish. They're not there. You physically cannot trigger a cough from the alveoli. Remember that, because it's the key that unlocks this entire puzzle. All right, so now that we've got the anatomy down, you can probably start to see why this whole idea of a cardiac cough begins to fall apart. Let's connect the dots. And here it is, the big contradiction, the huge problem with the old theory. The fluid that builds up from congestive heart failure, it's called pulmonary edema, it collects in the alveoli, the exact part of the lungs that has no cough receptors. So, if the fluid is in a place that can't trigger a cough, how can it be the thing causing the cough? It just doesn't add up. And look, this isn't just a theory. A major study looked at over 200 dogs with the most common kind of heart disease, and their conclusion was crystal clear. They found no statistical link, zero, between a dog coughing and that dog having fluid in its lungs from heart failure. The evidence just wasn't there.
Okay, so if the fluid isn't the bad guy here, then what on earth is making these dogs cough so much? Well, the answer turns out to be less about one thing and more about a perfect storm of conditions. All right, let's break down this perfect storm. There are three things happening all at once. First off, a lot of these small, older dogs that are prone to heart disease also happen to have other airway problems, like chronic bronchitis. Second, as their heart disease progresses, the heart itself literally gets bigger. And third, and this is the kicker, that bigger heart starts to physically push on those airways, which are already sensitive, causing an irritation that triggers the cough.
And this chart, wow, this really shows you that perfect storm in action. A dog with just an enlarged heart is a little over 2.5 times more likely to cough. But look what happens when you combine that enlarged heart with an underlying airway disease. Bam! The odds of that dog coughing skyrocket to nearly 11 times higher. It's the combination of the two problems that really creates the symptom. And if you're wondering what that physical pressure actually looks like, well, take a look at this. These images are from a tiny camera looking inside a dog's airways. On the left, you see a healthy, wide-open airway. But on the right, you can literally see the airway being squashed by the enlarged heart pushing on it from the outside. That is the mechanical irritation that's the real culprit. So what this all boils down to is that the term cardiac cough is simply the wrong name for it. It's a misnomer. The cough is real, and the heart disease is real. But the cough isn't a direct result of heart failure. It's a symptom of heart size making a separate airway problem much, much worse.
Okay, so this is more than just a cool science fact. This has huge, real-world implications for how we as owners monitor our pets at home. If the cough isn't the big warning sign we always thought it was, what should we be looking for instead?
The science is so clear on this now. The single most reliable sign of congestive heart failure is not coughing. It's an increased breathing rate, especially when they're sleeping or at rest. A cough all by itself, without that rapid breathing, is way more likely to be an airway issue, even if it is being made worse by the size of the heart.
And here's something incredibly powerful you can do right at home. Monitor their sleeping respiratory rate. Just wait until they're totally passed out and then count how many breaths they take in one full minute. A healthy dog's rate is almost always well under 30. If you start seeing a consistent rate over 30 to 35, or even just a sudden, sustained jump in their normal number, that is your signal to call the vet right away.
Now, you might be thinking, hang on a second, my dog's cough did get better when the vet put him on heart medication. And that's a great point, and there's a really good reason for it. Things like diuretics can reduce blood volume, which can actually make the heart a little bit smaller, easing up that pressure on the airways. Other heart meds can also reduce heart size over time, which, again, lessens that mechanical irritation.
So let's just say this one more time, because it's probably the most important thing to remember from all of this. If your dog is coughing, but their breathing rate is calm and normal, the problem is almost certainly in their airways, not because their lungs are filling up with fluid.
So from now on, try to shift your focus. Instead of straining to hear a cough and worrying, take a quiet moment and just watch their chest rise and fall while they're sleeping. Understanding what you're truly watching for is one of the most powerful things you can do to protect them. It really could make all the difference.